So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the cabinet split on Mogg's deregulation plan. So some of this is to do with most of this is to do with the sunset clauses and obviously the cuts to the civil service, which Jacob Rees-Mogg is pushing. And obviously less civil servants means less capacity to get work done. And when you're adding a load of sunset clauses, that's not going to end well, is it? So a cabinet row was broken out over Mogg's plans to axe remaining EU laws in under 4 years. I thought it was 5 year sunset clause. I was wrong, it's 4 years. Given concerns about the feasibility of combing through at least 2,000 pieces of legislation while the civil service faces severe cutbacks. And you might lose a lot more of the experienced civil servants as well, because typically they're the ones that are paid more. The Brexit Opportunities Minister is pushing for laws carried over Brexit to expire by a cliff edge deadline on the 23rd of June 2026. And the other thing you've got to really think about here is 2026. There's going to be a general election in 24, right? It doesn't give a new government a lot of time to figure out what to keep and what to get rid of. Now, this is to mark 10 years since the EU referendum. I mean, it's quite sad that they're using symbolic goals like this. 10 years since we decided to do the most stupid thing we've done probably since the Iraq War, probably since voting Tory in 2019. Let's be honest. I guess that'd be the wrong way around. However, The Guardian has learned that at least 2 cabinet ministers have rallied against the proposal, while officials said the goal is literally impossible. One is not gone public, but is leaked. I think it's George Eustace. I don't know who the other one is. I'm not sure if it mentions it. So in a letter to the North Somerset MP, George Eustace said that messing around with some rules would mean an additional cost to businesses and be a waste of officials' time, especially since you're going to get a massive change of legislation once the sunset clauses kick in. A massive change, and businesses need a lot of legal expertise and a lot of staff to deal with that. It's not going to end well. While senior Whitehall sources voiced fears of mass deregulation drive by the back door, the pushback came amid wrangling within government about how to better promote the benefits of Britain's independence. And again, because they have to show what have they gotten out of Brexit. That's the key here. The pushback came amid rambling within government how to promote the benefits of Britain's independence. How do you promote Brexit? They have no ideas about what they're doing. That's a key problem. They don't know how to promote the Brexit win that they got. All they have is deregulation. Again, it's just going to make ordinary people's lives worse and businesses' lives harder. You got to think, if we do start deregulating, right, it's going to make it harder for businesses to export to the EU, given that there's a level playing field in place. And what that means is under the TCA, the EU can put on tariffs if they think the UK has a competitive edge in certain areas because of deregulation. This is just stupid. Mogg plans, not the TCA, but Mogg's plans. Mogg plans to publish a Brexit Freedoms Bill this summer. In a letter to cabinet colleagues seen by The Guardian, he proposed 23rd of June 26 as the date when a sunset clause should be activated, causing all retained EU law to fall off the statute book. And again, what happens when all of those laws fall off? Do we go back to 1973 rules? What happens at that point? He hasn't explained it. Alternative dates significant in the Brexit calendar, such as the 31st of January 2030, which would mark a decade. But again, we'd have 2 general elections by then. So it doesn't make sense. A future government have to go through all of this stuff to see what they want to keep and what they want to get rid of. It's a lot of work, especially for a civil service that is being cut. After a Whitehall review found that there were 2,195 retained EU laws still in existence across 180 unique policy areas. That's a lot of legislation. That's a lot of legislation around a lot of different areas. Mogg said an impetus was needed, and that's why he's doing this, because cabinet ministers are reluctant to deregulate. This to drive momentum for a regulatory reform process that would remove unnecessary burdens. And these aren't unnecessary burdens, though. These are obviously there for a reason. Some of them may go too far, or however you want to phrase it, but evidently, if they're so burdensome, we would have gotten rid of them. We've had enough time to go through some of this stuff. Ministers were ordered to assess the laws affecting their departments and told that some with higher levels would need to allocate significant resources and no money would be provided. But what if, right, you're the Department for Transport, you've got to deal with strikes from rail workers, etc. You don't have the resources to allocate to looking at what laws need to be repealed and replaced, etc. You don't have that, especially when your workforce is being cut. Given the existing plans to axe 91,000 civil servants, I mean, this is wild. A team is set up in the Cabinet Office to help triage those laws that are high priority for keeping. And again, who decides what is high priority? Who's going to decide that? What is high priority, what isn't? You're going to have to allocate way more staff to go over 2,100 plus bits of legislation to figure out which bits are the most important. That's a lot of work in itself. An annex to the letter to the cabinet admitted there was a risk of increase in litigation, and that while the government would commit publicly to not breaking any international obligations, Mogg was considering whether to make this more explicit in the text of the bill. And again, if we start, why would countries do trade deals with us when we're openly violating our international obligations? Again, this isn't even related to the protocol. Not to mention the fact that it will make trade between Northern Ireland and GB to Northern Ireland more difficult, because the EU are going to ask for more checks to be done in the Irish Sea because of our deregulation. This is so stupid on so many different levels. No wonder George Eustace is angry about this. He added that because tax was a particularly complex area of retained EU law, it would be addressed in a bespoke bill sponsored by the Treasury. Again, what parts of EU tax law make our taxes confusing? Because as far as I'm aware, we set the vast majority of our tax law. We set the marginal rates, we set the business marginal rates, we set the percentages, etc. How much people pay when, in terms of income tax, in terms of national insurance, in terms of VAT. Where have the EU made it confusing? Maybe with the loopholes, I don't know, but again, this is just stupid. Cabinet ministers were given less than 2 weeks to respond, with some missing the deadline taken as a sign of their unhappiness. And again, clearly cabinet ministers don't care for this. This is a guy, Rees Mogg, who's desperate to show some Brexit wins, who barely is in the office by the looks of things, allegedly by the fact that he's trying to hide the numbers. He's actually there in the office, despite the fact that he's moaning at civil servants for not being in the office physically when they're doing work from home. I mean, this guy's just beggars belief, honestly. In his letter, Eustace, the Environment Secretary, said such an approach could mean that time is wasted on minor issues when I have been trying to focus my officials' time on the flagship bodies of EU law that have the greatest impact. So again, he's trying to focus on the things he sees as the most annoying bits of EU law. Obviously, he's an idiot, George. But having sunset clauses means they have to go through everything. That's a key problem. He's looking at the habitats regulations and nitrate directives. Yeah, that's going to be great, isn't it? Get rid of habitats for animals and probably add more nitrate into the water. Can't wait for that. Winning. Eustace said he feared pressure of an early sunset cliff would mean that officials would be spending too much time looking at laws of lesser importance. But again, they do have the whole triage thing. And in doing all of them at once would be misplaced energy. And again, you can tell why he's annoyed, because he's probably have his workforce cut. And he's got a lot more work to do. I think the Department of Transport, if we have a look here, Transport has the most area of EU retained law, Transport and the Treasury, so you can see why the Transport Minister would be annoyed. Actually, George Eustace is DEFRA, though. George Eustace is DEFRA, so if we're assuming it could be down to Transport, it could be Grant Shapps who's annoyed by this, because Eustace is DEFRA, Environment and Rural Affairs. So it does tell you that, he's struggling with 330 bits of EU laws. Transport's got 430, Treasury's 373. These are very high amounts here. Eustace said he feared, I mentioned that. Another member of his cabinet admitted there was a disquiet in Boris Johnson's top team about the issue. This is not a debate that we are seeking to have in public, the minister said, but evidently Mogg's not listening. Someone leaked this letter to The Guardian, so they obviously knew the exact type of person they want this to be seen by. Otherwise, they would have linked it to the Telegraph. A government insider suggested Mogg's plan might not have been adopted due to staunch opposition, adding that many hours of parliamentary time would have to be set aside for adopting or amending retained EU laws at the expense of passing other key bills before the election. So instead of improving people's lives and getting on with the job, they're going to look at deregulation from EU laws here. It's just dumb, especially when the sunset clauses are due to end in 2024, which is around the time a general election is meant to happen. How are a government meant to deal with that? It don't make sense. Catherine Bernard, a professor of EU law at Cambridge University and deputy director of the UK in a Changing Europe, said replacing worthwhile EU rules with a domestic variation will take significant civil service and parliamentary time when the country has other pressing priorities. So just replacing them with a domestic variation, if we say an equivalent one, will take significant time. Forget changing them. You've got people who would want to put amendments onto them. You've got to go through the Lords. It's just a nightmare. Eustace said they would not comment on the leaked letter. Evidently, someone in his department leaked it. He says that EU law continues to enjoy in our legal framework and saving business. So they're talking about deregulation here. Make it easier to repeal our outdated legislation that EU law continues to enjoy in our legal framework, and saving business at least £1 billion a year and burdensome EU red tape. And I don't believe that they would save anywhere near £1 billion, especially when this would further damage our exports so much. At the moment, I think only a third of our exports are being checked by the EU. Imagine it's half our exports. Imagine it's 2/3. You're going to put Dover at an absolute standstill. Not just Dover, all the other ports are going to grind to an absolute halt, worse than they are now. And it's not looking great now. You still have long queues. They don't talk about it as much because they're not, massively long queues. They're not affecting holiday goers, but, there are still queues there at the Dover-Calais crossing, and this will make it worse. But, anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I hope he's got a book on, politics for dummies, because he's going to need it. I'm going to leave it there. There's a reason why no one's giving this guy a cabinet position until Boris Johnson. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.